guys need to just compete where they're supposed to be competitive. What they start to think is like there's something wrong with me, as opposed to thinking about how could I be more competitive? How can I stand out from the group? Guys don't think about strategy. Instead, they'd rather just say, you know what? These girls are too picky. They pity themselves, and pity is a drug. Alright, today I'm going to spend some time with you guys talking about incels today, guys. So for those of you who don't know, the question is, what is an incel? An incel is somebody who essentially has decided that they are no longer going to be involved in a relationship with a woman. An incel is somebody who is a member of an online subculture of people who define themselves as unable to get a romantic or sexual partner despite desiring one. So, incels are essentially guys who, probably harbor a lot of resentment towards women, hatred, misogynist, possibly, or just guys who are unlucky with women, right? And what I wanted to spend some time doing today is talking about how someone becomes an incel and how to have a better mindset or a better attitude to get out of that mindset of being an incel. Because I don't think incels are bad people, but I do think they've been handed a raw deal or a bad hand. And I also think there's an accountability piece that a lot of incels don't actually want to admit, that they actually play a role in their unhappiness when it comes to their relationships with women. So I was actually supposed to have an interview with an incel like 2 days ago, and he essentially bailed on me. And the reason why, I don't know. I expect it's probably because maybe he felt embarrassed. Maybe he felt like, you know what, as we got closer to the date, he had thought about it and he probably didn't even want to be associated with being considered an incel. And so I actually went out of my way to, stay in communication with him. And if he's listening to this, I hope that he, reaches out to me and that we could have a conversation. Maybe we could do it virtually. But I thought a lot about, what topics or what we were going to discuss. And a lot of it really started with this idea of childhood and his early experiences with women. And a lot of guys, what they don't like to do is they don't actually like to look back at their earlier day experiences with women, right? And that's something that I find is really important to understanding what your problems are in particular. I feel like a lot of guys don't want to do the introspective work of looking inside themselves to be able to really understand how they ended up where they are now. Incels in particular seem like guys to me who need therapy. Everybody needs therapy, but incels in particular need therapy. Why? Because they're guys who are hurt. And this is something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. Men in particular don't want to talk about their feelings. A lot of guys have a hard time admitting that women hurt their feelings. If you love women, at some point in time, a woman is going to hurt your feelings. And this is something that really bothers me, because there are a lot of guys out there that'll be in complete denial about this. Guys who don't have experience with women, or guys who try to cap and pretend like they have had a lot of experience with women. They'll say yeah, no girl could ever hurt my feelings. And it's dude, at some point in time in your life, you're going to care about a girl. You just are. And I think a lot of incels, what they don't like to realize, or what really bothers them, is this idea that they feel like women don't want them. And they resent them for that. And they think there's something wrong with them. Or they don't think there's something wrong with them. Maybe they think there's something wrong with women. What I'd like to see are older men who actually really like women, who actually have good intentions to connect men and women together, to speak out on their experiences. Personally, I've said this before on my podcast, I've had wonderful, amazing experiences with women in my past. I think it's unfortunate that there are a lot of guys out there who have this negative relationship with women. It bothers me. I think that a lot of guys, what they don't want to do is they don't want to look in the mirror and acknowledge their faults or acknowledge what they're going through on the inside. And so what they'll do is they'd rather blame women, or they'd rather blame society, or they'd rather blame it on, hypergamy or whatever, for their shortcomings, instead of actually trying to understand why hypergamy exists and how it's actually helped them, and how it can help them to motivate them to want to level up, to be able to attract women that they want to actually connect with. And I think it's no different than like a girl who decides, you know what, I'm going to focus on, trying to be the best woman I can be for a guy that I want to be with, right? Because it's not just men who suffer with women. Women also struggle with men as well. But I think what we're missing in this society is this accountability piece, which is so key to improving in our relationships with men and women. So I say all this to say that in my experience, having talked to lots of guys, I think we got a lot of guys who need outlets and spaces where they can talk about what they're going through. I think a lot of guys are in their feelings. I think a lot of the MGTOW guys are in their feelings. I think a lot of the red pill guys are in their feelings. I think a lot of these incel guys are in their feelings. And I think what they need to do is get an education about women through interacting with them, but also reading about them. And not just listening to YouTubers talking about it, right? Because I know I'm YouTubing now, but I'm saying like, I think a lot of guys need to go out of their way to educate themselves about hypergamy, what it is, female nature, read books, and then go out and experiment and actually interact with women. Try to have romantic relationships with women. And as long as you're putting yourself out there, you're going to learn a lot. Now, one thing I do want to mention is this, because this is something that I feel like, now that I've kind of set the stage, I feel like I should get more specific about myself, because I feel like if I don't go there myself, then I can't really help anybody. There have been times in my past where I've approached girls and, the interaction didn't go well. And, I can think of this one time in particular when I had first started college. I'll never forget, like, I approached her and her two friends were like, who is this guy, right? Like, the girl herself was actually probably, like, into me, or at least, from what I can remember, she, sort of was, like, receptive, essentially. But the two friends were like, they weren't cool with me for whatever reason. And I remember, like, the alpha female of the group was sort of like, what do you want? And I was like, I want to talk to your friend. And she's like, why should she talk to you? And I remember just being so crushed by that. I at the time didn't realize like I have to like engage everybody in the group. I was just going for what I wanted. And sometimes that works, but at other times it doesn't, right? And in this case, it didn't work because I guess, maybe the alpha female was jealous of the fact that I had approached the cute one, right? I just remember thinking to myself like, man, like I'm so crushed because then, the alpha girl, like pretty much I didn't have an answer for her, right? Because I was just approaching, and I just needed to learn this lesson. But pretty much the alpha female just looks at me and then she just grabs her two friends and just like runs off. One of them being the cute girl that I was trying to approach. I remember just going downstairs and just getting really, really sad, and sort of beating myself up. Like, what's wrong with me, right? Like I was taking it personal. The best thing that ever happened was I pretty much, took accountability for my result. Like I just sat there and as in my sadness, I remember just thinking to myself like, man, like, did I do something wrong? Is there something wrong with me? And I realized like, you know what? There's nothing wrong with me because first of all, the alpha girl and the cute girl, they don't know me. They know nothing about me. right? I just decided not to take it personally. I just decided that maybe it's not me that's wrong. Maybe it's something that I'm doing that's wrong. And that light bulb switched on my head. All of a sudden, I realized that it was okay for me to be disappointed that I didn't achieve my objective, which was to get this cute girl's number. It wasn't okay for me to stay there. It wasn't okay for me to be like, you know what? I'm not going to learn how to get better. And what I see, especially in these online communities of men in the manosphere, a lot of these guys, they don't know how to take accountability for their results. They don't know how to look in the mirror and think about it logically and say to themselves, maybe it's a strategic thing. Maybe it's something that I'm doing that's wrong, as opposed to I'm wrong, or there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with women. Everybody has a strategy in life. Everybody has a game plan for how they want to attack this life. And sometimes your game plan, your strategy sucks. So if you change your strategy, then you might see a different result, and then you'll start to learn more about yourself. You'll start to see better results. So in that instance, with that situation, the next time I approached a group of girls, I made sure to engage everybody in the group. I made sure that when I approached the group that they were all cool with me before I went and tried to talk to the girl that I wanted to talk to. And when I started doing that, I instantly started seeing a lot better results, right? I started getting numbers. In fact, the friends would try to help, me get the girl that I wanted to talk to. And it was just a mind switch. But I learned that because I actually put myself out there and I actually approached, again, right? I didn't just give up. I didn't think there was anything wrong with me. Like initially I did, I was hurt, but I realized like that hurt actually fueled me to try to figure out what was wrong with my approach. I feel like a lot of these incel guys, a lot of these guys online right now would like to point the finger because finally they feel like their side is being heard. They like to point the finger and say like, the women are the problem, right? Instead of adapting. Like, for example, a lot of the guys I talk to now, what they'll say to me is online dating has changed dating for the worse, right? So what they'll say things like, now the average girl, which is true, the average girl has more options than she's ever had before. The average guy back in the day used to have leverage in the form of being able to, they offered financial security to women. And because they offered that financial security, they were able to have some leverage in the market. But nowadays, women, especially women who don't want kids or women who, can take care of themselves financially, they don't need men. Now, guys have to be better in order to be able to compete in online dating markets, right? So the average guy, who's like, let's say he's like, if we were to rank him on a number scale, let's say he's like a 4, which is average, right? 1 out of 10, 10 being like amazing, 1 being like trash. If he's about a 4 or 5, he's probably not doing well in online dating. And it's very, it makes a lot of sense because women now, because of hypergamy, women tend to look for guys, they try to look for the best deal they can possibly get. The average guy, what they start to think is like there's something wrong with me, as opposed to thinking about how could I be more competitive? How can I stand out from the group, right? How can I take my package, what I am, and try to enhance my package, make me look better, or maybe compete in markets where I'm actually sought after. It's a strategy thing. And a lot of guys don't want to do the work. Guys need to just compete where they're supposed to be competitive. That's what I want to say. If you're a guy who's, let's say, in a club and you're average looking and you're in a club where all the guys are ballers and they're all good looking and they're tall and handsome, you shouldn't be in that club. Point blank, period. Why are you competing in a place where you're not competitive? It makes no sense. And yet guys do this all the time. Guys don't think about strategy. They don't think about how can I actually be in a place where girls are actually chasing me or coming after me. Instead, they'd rather just say, you know what? These girls are too picky, which is a loser's mentality. Because people, for whatever reason, a lot of guys are doomed to just be losers. They've accepted that that's their life. They've accepted that that's their reality. I don't know why. I wouldn't sit there and ever think to myself, I want to be a loser. But there's a lot of guys who just accept it. They're like, they pity themselves. They pity themselves. And pity is a drug. And they'll be like, yeah, it's the girls. They're the problem. When really it's like, no, dude, you're the problem. That's my 2 cents on that. That's what I think. I think if you're somebody listening to this video, if you're an incel and you are somebody who has given up on women, I think you need to start with acknowledging that you actually love women, that you actually want them in your life, that you actually want to connect with them. Acknowledge that and not take it personal that you're not getting the results that you want, whether that's a girlfriend, to have sexual relationships with women, to kiss a woman, whatever it is that you want, right? But you have to take responsibility for your strategy, which may not actually be helping you. I think you need to surround yourself with guys who do well with women and ask them what they're doing and get some pointers on what you could do to improve. And don't take it personal if you're getting rejected. You know, if you approach 100 girls and you get rejected, 100 times, maybe there's something wrong with your strategy. Maybe it's the way you look, right? Maybe it's your outfits. Maybe it's your hygiene, right? Here's something that I see a lot. Like, a lot of short guys will complain. They'll be like, well, all girls, all they ever want are like these tall guys and this, that, and the third. I'm like, look, I know short guys who hook up with girls all the time. That's an excuse, man. Everyone has insecurities. Every single person has them. The question is, does it bother you? That's the question. And if it bothers you, then there it is. But you could also, be really fat. You could also have a lisp. You could also have, a speech impediment. You could have a ton of things that can make you feel insecure. It could be your job. You may not have a job. It could be anything. It doesn't matter. The question is, do you own it, right? Own yourself. Own your shortcomings. I just think a lot of guys need therapy. Straight up. They need to get in touch with their emotions. They need to be honest with themselves about what they're feeling. They need to understand their emotions. And they need to put into work to overcome their challenges. And if you're not willing to do that, then you'll just die alone. But if you're willing to put into work and accept responsibility for your strategy and not take rejection personally, then I think you have hope. Anyway, with that said, hold firm in the struggle. Peace.